Hi, I'm Rajiv, and today I'm going to talk to you about positive thinking. My good friend Heidi has a wonderful story that she tells about her father giving her some advice. She was complaining to him about something, and he said, "Heidi, I want you to draw a light." And she said, "What do you mean?" And he was like, here's a pencil, here's some paper. Draw light. I have some paintings that I would like to show you. Here's a facade of a New York apartment, and here's another one, and they're nice, but if I think about the paintings that I'm proud of and the light that was captured, there's one, here's another one. The same spot in Florence this summer. I went back to it a few times. Do you notice that the way we really see light is when the shadow is there? The light actually looks beautiful when there's darkness right beside it. And that metaphor that Heidi's dad used is the perfect way to describe how positive thinking can be an exercise that you work on. It's kind of like going to the gym. You don't just go to the gym and bench press 150 pounds the first time you're there. You start with very light weight, maybe 5 pounds, and I've used this analogy before. And if you go to the gym regularly, you move slowly from lifting 5 pounds to lifting 150 pounds. If you find that your mind goes to a dark place, or you're sitting in depressive thoughts for a long time, it's really, really difficult to pull yourself out of that overnight. It's almost impossible, I would say. But the way to do it is in small increments. And in the beginning, the reason why I bring up the shadows and the darkness and negativity is that you don't just ignore those things. You don't pretend that they're not there. You actually have to look at them. And you have to understand why that's happening, why you're sad, why you're depressed, why you're upset. And then you have to make a conscious choice to change things. When I personally think about growing up, I openly admit to myself that a huge part of my childhood was spent in darkness. I was upset a lot. I grew up in a time when it was not publicly acceptable to be gay. I felt very uncomfortable telling my parents and my family that I was gay. It was the 90s. I heard the F word thrown around all the time, and it hurt so much to just imagine telling people that I was gay and dealing with the repercussions of that. And that did something to me. It pushed me into a place that was very hard to live in. I also had an alcoholic father, and that was another aspect of growing up that was really, really difficult. And when I think of what I did to pull myself out of that, I realized that it was small things that all added up. I was living in a situation that was very tough. And the way that I found solace was by doing small things that made me happy. So I built a chicken coop in my backyard. And every single morning that I would get up and go out there and feed the chickens and collect eggs, I felt this immense joy. It was a small thing, but it made such a big impact on my life. If I was in my room and I was painting or doing calligraphy or sewing or one of the many obscure crafts and art projects that I did as a kid, when I was in that world, I felt okay. And I started to understand that no one else could make me happy. I couldn't rely on my dad, and I definitely couldn't rely on the public, who seemed to not accept that I was gay when I was a kid. I couldn't rely on that stuff to make me happy. I had to figure out how to be content. Your thoughts are the most powerful tool that you have. And when I say tool, I want you to think about it that way. What you think affects how you feel. I have a pair of shears that I use just for topiaries to keep these shears sharp, never put them away dirty, and never put them away damp, because the blades will rust. So every time I use them, I wipe off the blades with a paper towel, and then camellia oil on the blades and wipe that down, and then you put them away. And it helps to keep the blade clean and sharp. The action of using a tool is what I want you to think of when you're thinking about what you're doing with your thoughts. Every thought that you have, every action that you do, every word that you say affects what's going on in your head. If you say negative things, if you complain a lot, that's affecting your thoughts, and that's affecting how you feel. But if you slowly start to pull yourself away from negative thoughts, negative actions, and actual negative words, your thoughts will start to become positive. That is essential to developing the habit of positive thinking. The next aspect of positive thinking is something that you know, something that you've heard before, but I have to say it. Exercise. Daily exercise, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Ideally 20 minutes to begin with. Working up to an hour is a vital step towards regularly being able to think positively. And I attribute my mental health to my regular daily physical exercise. You find what works for you. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's a walk, maybe it's a gentle walk through the woods, maybe it's working out and lifting weights, maybe it's swimming. Swimming is wonderful. If I lived by the ocean, well, I kind of do, but I don't want to swim in the East River. But if I lived right by the ocean, I would swim in the ocean every single day, probably even when it was cold. I jump into the ocean when it's cold. And when I'm swimming, I feel like something spiritual is happening. When I'm swimming, I feel like I'm entering another world, the world of water. And what that does to my mind is so wonderful. It's like taking a magic pill. It changes things. So physical exercise, crucial to thinking positively. If you find that you are in a very difficult place where you're sitting in dark thoughts or you're depressed, even saying to yourself, I will get better and I can get better, that is a way of slowly pulling yourself out of this. I think what has helped me is to actually envision what is happening. And when I have been in my lowest lows, I allow myself to see that. And I actually allow myself to sit there. I actually say to myself, wow, you feel really bad. And you know the next thing I say? And that's okay. We're not always going to be happy. Happiness is not a feeling that you just achieve and then you sit in there for the rest of your life. Happiness comes in moments. Joy comes in moments. Sadness comes in moments. Anger comes in moments. And if you can see that accurately, and if you can accept that, then you can start to understand that what you're seeking is not happiness. What you're seeking is contentment. Are you content with your life? I think in the West, we have a tendency to associate contentment with material things. We think, if I get this stuff, then I'll feel better. If I get this apartment or this house. Material things are also relationships. If I go out with this person, or if I am a better friend, then I'll feel better. Or jobs. When I get this job, I'll feel better. That is, to me, a very Western way of thinking. But contentment doesn't come from any of those things. Contentment, what's amazing is it just comes from your head. You can have nothing and you can be completely content with your life. The irony is, often these things that we're seeking, they're the reason why we spiral into negative thinking, is because we're tricked into thinking that those things are going to bring us some form of satisfaction, and they won't. The ability to change your life is something that every single one of you out there is capable of doing, but it takes strength and it takes practice. You are in control of changing your life. You are in control of being content. Nobody else. Stop and think about the things that you should and could be grateful for. Stop on a regular basis and remind yourself, I can see. I can go outside and I can look up at the sky and I can see that sunset. Wow! How many people out there can't see? I can hear. Listen to that wonderful sound of birds singing. I can hear that. Be grateful for that. I can touch things. I have both of my hands. I have both of my feet. I can get on a bike and I can ride around New York City. How wonderful is this? To feel the wind in my hair. I am grateful. I think about those things so regularly. I think about all the things that I'm lucky to have, just physically. And then I hear people complain and I think, wow, if you took the time that you're taking to complain about nothing, and you thought about the things you should be grateful for, your mind would move away from that dark place into a better place. But here's the thing, I can't change my friend's perspective. When we're complaining, we need to listen to ourselves, because our friends will listen to us. They'll listen to us because they know sometimes we got to get things off of our chest. They'll listen to us because maybe they can offer us advice. Maybe they can offer us a perspective that we haven't seen. But let me tell you something. Your friends don't want to hear you complain. If you said something to them once, twice, they don't want to hear it again. And they might be polite and they might listen. But your complaining is doing nothing for your life unless you change it. So stop complaining. And I have lost very close friends because of this. I have said to certain people, I'm really sorry, I can't hear you complain anymore. I can't listen to this. And until you stop complaining to me, I don't think we have very much to talk about. And I'm fine with that. I would rather be completely alone with my healthy mind than be surrounded by people that just want to suck my energy out of me. So, how do you not be that person? You have to do the work, and only you can do the work. Part of doing the work is being alone. If you are constantly distracting yourself by being around other people, by watching a screen, by turning to a vice like alcohol or drugs or food, those are all things that you're doing because you're trying to fill an empty space. And if you are doing that, what you're not doing is being alone with your thoughts. This is very, very, very hard. I'm going to warn you that it's very hard. It's hard to sit completely alone with your thoughts, but you have to do it. If you want to learn how to think positively, you have to actually think. And thinking can only take place when your mind is not distracted by other things. I don't want you thinking about my thoughts, by watching one of my videos or thinking about somebody else's thoughts by scrolling. In order to think about what's going on in your head, you have to sit alone. And I think people find it very hard to sit completely alone with their thoughts. What I suggest doing is having a meal completely by yourself. The next time you're alone and you're eating something, do not watch something on a screen. Don't read a book. Sit by yourself and eat your food. And for that entire time, observe what's happening in your head. You might be really uncomfortable. It might be painful. It might be so awkward that you can't do it. And I assure you, there are people out there that cannot do this. They cannot sit alone for the duration of a meal solely with their thoughts. But that is what you must be able to do to develop a healthy mind and to be able to learn how to think positively. If you think negative thoughts, you create grooves in your mind that become deeper and deeper and deeper. And your thought patterns, they fall into that groove and they move forward. Creating new grooves in your mind is very hard because it starts on the surface. But the more you do that, the deeper those grooves become. So you start small, and you have to be brave to do this, because it's not nice saying to yourself, wow, I'm really a negative person and I think negatively about so many things. That's not easy, but that takes courage. And if you have the courage to do that, then you can say, okay, I'm going to change this and I'm going to stop this. And as you start thinking positively, the grooves in your mind that are positive become so deep that you stay there. And when things come into your life that are negative, you kind of go, not doing that. Listen, living in New York City is tough. There is someone that will push you out of the way or cut in front of you or grab something that you have on a regular basis. And I used to explode. What my friends would say is the dragon would be unleashed. And I had to work really hard to stop that. I'm a small person and I just felt like I was being bullied by bigger people. I didn't want to be that way. So it took actual work to little by little create positive ways of dealing with it. The first is stopping and not exploding. The second is understanding that that's the way this person does things. And the third was just accepting that it was a tiny little moment of my day, and ultimately, I can brush it off. I want you to think about the person or the people in this world that you love to be with. Why do you love to be with them? Because you like who they are? Because you have great conversations with them? Because they're caring and understanding? Well then, you know what? You develop those things in yourself. That's why I'm my best friend, because I support myself. I think I am fantastic, but I also think that I am selfish occasionally, moody occasionally. I get angry occasionally. I'm lazy, and I say those things to myself. I am my best friend, but I am also my harshest critic, and I know when I have to be hard on myself. That is what I feel we all need to do. We all need to get to know ourselves better than we know anybody else. It's so much easier to look outside and assess what's happening with another person. Oh, he's doing this because he thinks this way, and don't you notice that he says this all the time? But how often do we do that with ourselves? When you're observing something about another person or about another group of people, and you find that it's something that you don't like, ask yourself if you do that. This kind of stuff is actually the most difficult stuff to do, because I can tell you about it and you can feel great hearing me talk about it, but you have to do the work, and the work is the hard part. The work is actually what people start doing, and then I'll come back to it later. Maybe I'll come back to it next week. It's nice. I'll do it later. It doesn't work. Nothing will get better. You know what? No one will see that you're not doing the work. That's why it's so easy to push it aside. Shove it under the bed. Put it in a bag. I'll get back to it. Don't do that. Make it daily practice. Make it something that you focus on every single day. And that's how you change your life. The thing about negative behavior and negative thinking is that it affects everyone around you. If you are being negative, it is not something you're just containing within. You're spreading that. If you live with other people, those people are dealing with your negative behavior and your negative thoughts. But if you are a positive person, and if you know how to think positively, then the people around you benefit from that. And I would say that that is something that I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of being able to move in different circles, to be with newly formed acquaintances, or to be with friends and family that I've known for a long time. And I don't upset them with my baggage, because I know how to deal with that on my own. I have worked really hard, and I have developed the tools to be able to lie in bed at night and process what I'm upset about, and then to work it out on my own. I don't spread negativity to the people around me. I don't plague them with that, because they don't want that. You can do it too. This is not easy. It's not going to happen overnight. But if you can accept that the way to find light is by understanding that there is shadow always right beside it or close by, then it is something that you too can achieve.